Welcome back to Pillars of Eternity, fighting already in progress. I need to do a little bit of explanation in a voiceover here. This recording is taking place some weeks after my failed attempts to fight Theos. I actually went back and went off into the White March DLC and started recording videos over there, but real life got in the way, and I found myself not having time to finish those recordings. So I wanted to come back to the final fight with Theos, and I changed the difficulty back to story mode, super easy mode. Just wanted to finish this fight and finish the game, just so I could finish this video series as quickly as possible, because I was finding myself not having time to record videos. Oh, we got him. We now rejoin live commentary. Got him. At your feet rests the body of Theos. Theos. Hollow, the dense wrinkle shaped by the silent shouldering of an eternal burden, now smoothed across his color-drained face. His soul remains still for the moment, defenseless as energy expended in defeat. It lies sprawled across his body like a death shroud.
That's the servant down, and the mistress still to go. A good start, worthy of being built upon.
After journeying for lifetimes, I can't imagine his failure, knowing it was all for nothing.
Theos followed his mistress's orders too well. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse that he will remember this again one day after he makes it through the wheel.
Some point, you have to look at the things your God is telling you to do and ask yourself if it's worth it. All those lives. And at the end of them, he was no better than the very people he sought to guide. A pity he would ever have to face that realization again.
I'm going to explore Theos' soul. With a deep breath, you plunge into Theos' soul, and where in Brackenbury it had been a maze of narrow corridors and dead ends, now it is expansive and borderless, its walls crumbling into heaps like the ruins of Engwith as you pass through them. You travel for what seems like ages, rushing to a known destination, a memory you glimpsed once before. At last you see it, no more than a pinprick of light at the end of a long tunnel, expanding slowly at first, then quickly as you near. You come out in the room you are standing in now, but it is new and pristine and filled with people, thousands of them, all turned towards the great Adra pillar and the machine that encases it. Theos stands at the machine, and you are one with him now. You look out at the crowd, at faces of shriveled old men and cherub-cheeked little girls, at mothers bouncing infants to quiet them, and fathers clasping their children's restless hands and watching you with somber acceptance. A woman with tears in her eyes gives you a small nod. You turn back toward the machine, your breaths constricted beneath the weight of unwanted knowledge, preparing yourself to set out alone on a journey without end. You close your eyes and open them again to find the machine still in front of you, beckoning. You take your place in front of it and place your hands upon a large mechanical disc at the base of the great crystal column and speak a single word. Giant rings creak to life, building speed, setting arrays of carved draconic mouths aglow, and sending tremors through the platform beneath you. The entire room shakes now with the force of the accelerating machine, all sound drowned out by its deep, deafening thrum. Brilliant tendrils of light arc outward from the pillar in all directions, and you look over your shoulder to see them engulfing the crowd, burning them brightly like hot iron. One by one, the tendrils disappear, leaving ashen effigies where people once stood, many of them disintegrating into gray heaps under the stress of the tremors. You look above to the Adra pillar, and a glowing spherical mass has begun to coalesce atop the column where the arcs converge. It grows and pulses, translucent and bulbous like some immense chrysalis, suspended in slow rotation as though it were being spun from the arcs of light. When the last arc disappears, the spectral mass hangs a moment, no longer rotating, so bright you must shield your eyes with an outstretched hand, and it seems to you as though it is looking at you. You bow your head in acknowledgement and look back up to see it melt into the pillar like warm candle wax. The pillar flares with a flash of light bright as the sun itself, then fades to darkness. The machine slows down to an abrupt halt, and when the last echo of its grinding cogs has passed, the chamber is still, and you are alone. From all sides, reality begins to bleed in through the memory, and you find yourself in your own skin once more, looking down on Theos's lifeless body. You sense a listlessness to Theos's soul, an overwhelming fatigue that hinders its immediate escape and makes it vulnerable to manipulation. You feel as though your victory has given you some kind of hold over it, and you are able to do with it as you please. Well, we have many choices. We can return it to the cycle, we can tear his soul apart, we can banish his soul to Briath Eamon, we can destroy all memories contained within, or we can tear his soul apart again. Let me think about this. Let me think what I will say. I could say, remember that no man can hide the truth forever, and all you've done was done in futility. Your memory shall be your penance. I could say that to you, Theos. Or I could tear your soul apart. I, of all people, realize the sway memories can hold. But if I tear your soul apart, it is time you were granted peace. Or I could banish your soul to Briath Eamon, because there can be no forgiveness for your deeds, only justice. Or I could destroy all memories. Your memory makes you a slave to your own past. Perhaps it can't be undone, but it can be forgotten. Or I could take vengeance upon you for the suffering you have caused me, Theos. I'm not sure I understand what I saw in the vision, except that, is this an endless cycle that Theos continues to do whatever his bad stuff is over and over again? I feel like I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with your soul, Theos. I just don't know. It's been a long time since I considered this. It's been weeks and weeks and weeks since I considered the implications of Theos and his deeds, and I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm going to banish your soul to Briath Eamon. Theos Ix Arcanon. There can be no forgiveness for your deeds, only justice. You shall escape judgment no longer.
To apply the teachings of Dunes would more immediately satisfy the cravings in my bones. But this is the stronger lesson, for his soul is already marked by his own hand.
Perhaps this is the best place in the world for Theos. Somewhere he can't cause further harm. Still, you eventually found the Ovara. What is a few thousand years to someone like him?
You regard Theos' soul still and subdued, and your pronouncement seems to empower your spirit. Your will seems to you now a thick chain, and you wind it around Theos, constraining all movement, eliminating any possible last means of resistance. You call to mind the eternal prison, the vast empty cavern, and its cells of Adra, vacated by souls that chose to betray themselves in order to escape an infinite abyss of hopeless self-reflection. You choose a vacant pillar and pour your consciousness into it, creating a perfect, inescapable hollow with space for one. And now you gather up Theos' soul and bear it to the pillar like some bodiless jailer conjured by justice itself. You can feel its resistance now, the abject terror radiating from it, but your bindings will not be broken. When at last it is sealed away and you begin to recede back to your center, you could almost swear you hear a distant, wordless cry for mercy. In the stillness that follows, a single word echoes through your mind, a word you spoke when you were one with Theos in an ancient memory. You realize it is the word that activates the machine. Wow. Did we win? Did we defeat the enemy? Oh, we can talk to everybody now. What do you think about this, Eder?
Theos, he had hold of your soul from a long time back, seems like. You get what you needed from him?
I guess I got justice. I'm not really sure, Eder. To be perfectly honest, I'm really not sure. But I'm beyond those needs now, Eder. I'm beyond it.
Feels good, doesn't it? Got enough to worry about as it is.
That is the truth, Eder. That is the exact truth of the matter.
You'll be feeling better soon then. Good. That's real good. You got it figured out what you're going to do about all that?
The machine? Nope, I do not know, Eder.
Got a lot of people out there thinking they've been abandoned by their gods. There's not much that'll put the fear in you more than that. You can take my word for it. If it was in my power, and I know it's not, but if it was, I'd find a way to give them the courage to face it. Not because they think there's some god looking out for them, but because they've just got it in them. And after what you've been through, though, I'm sure you got your own ideas. Better make it good.
He winks. That's not very helpful, Eder. I think Eder wants me to make the people face the fact that there's no gods. What do you think, Pallegina?
So much for Theos, then.
The membranes of Pallegina's golden eyes sweep out and retract as she gazes into the great machine.
Now you have a chance to set things right, back to the proper order of things. It will take the Dyrwood generations to recover, but at least these souls will find their way back to the wheel, as it should be.
I don't know. I think I'm supposed to send these souls back to the Hallowed Children. I promised somebody that.
Ah, the end of the road greets us at last. You fared well, Watcher. Better than any Watcher has right to. Seems you were afield in need of a flames cleansing.
I don't know what that means, Durance.
Would that my own trial had produced such an outcome. I had figured myself for the field all this time. But you were the field, and I the darkness. A lesson neither of Durance nor of Margarin. But with that trial's end, a new one begins. A god's trial. And I will stand in judgment without mercy.
Always uplifting, Durance. Wait, are you standing in judgment of the god, or are you standing in judgment of me? What do you think, Aloth?
Astounding. I always knew the Leaden Key stood for something big, but I didn't quite realize what I'd gotten myself into. And now, you're in the middle of something even bigger. With a decision that will affect millions. This is beyond either of us. The certainty of the gods is a mercy. Power like this is a heavy burden. Just look at how it crushed Theos. And perhaps he was right to surrender it to Woodica.
I don't know. Aloth, I gotta be honest with you. I don't really know what's going on here. Most of this is going beyond me, Aloth. I don't really understand what decision I'm supposed to make. I don't understand what the machine is doing over there. I just popped into the end of the game without reviewing any of the previous story, so I'm really not remembering much of anything that's going on here. I'm just gonna say maybe so, Aloth. Maybe so.
It's your decision, of course. And whatever you decide, I'm glad our paths crossed in Gilded Vale.
Me too. Sagani, we never did find your friend.
Never thought I'd see something like this in my travels. Lends a little perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah. I feel like I was expecting a much deeper observation from you, but I guess that's all we get. Well, now what? Now we go look at the machine, I suppose.
Of course.
Wait, where's Theos? Theos is gone. Theos has vanished. Now it's time to use the machine to save the Hollow Children. With your companions bearing witness, you step up to the place where Theos once stood before his people long ago. The great machine lies in front of you, idle, ready. You have seen this machine and others like it in operation. You understand how it works. It is a device for directing souls. As a watcher, it would be a simple matter to influence that direction, though as big as the machine is, it may be the last thing you ever do. I will speak the command to activate the machine. There is a shrieking of stone grinding against stone as old cogs loosen and begin to turn. You have only moments before the souls will be sent into the Adra vein. This will be your only chance at redirecting them. I can send the souls back into the reincarnation cycle. I can return the souls to the bodies they were intended for. I can entropically disintegrate the souls, ending their existence. I can distribute the essence to existing souls in Deerwood to strengthen them, or I can disperse the souls to an unknown location. Okay, I was sort of thinking one of these options would specifically say send them to the Hollows. I feel like I want to return the souls to the bodies they were intended for and save the children. I think that's what I'm doing. You close your eyes and expand your perception outward, taking in the immense totality of the tens of thousands of souls orbiting the chamber. Your grasp on the souls is tenuous. You find yourself fighting to keep them all within your influence, and you can feel them slipping away from you as the machine gains speed. A brief moment comes when it feels as though you hold all of them at once, and their force is so great it feels as though they will tear you apart. In that moment, you dedicate your entire being to bending their orbit, channeling their flow in a new direction. fade to white.
At your command, the ancient device became your instrument, spinning to life with deafening resonance and gathering up the swirling essence like thread on a great spindle. There, in the pale pulsing glow of the machine that set you on this path long ago, you summoned all your strength, focusing on your objective and blocking out all else. With a single concussive blast that rocked the chamber and sent you tumbling to the ground, you freed the souls from their stasis. Exhausted, your consciousness slipping away, your last sight was of the machine, dark and dormant. Then your eyes closed, and sleep welcomed you at long last. After coming to and searching for some time, you discovered the route Theos used to enter Sun and Shadow, and embarked on a long and arduous ascent back to the surface. You emerged in Ter Evron after days of tunneling through the rubble Theos had left behind, and when you stepped into the daylight, you were faced with a different Dyrwood than the one you had left. At your direction, the souls diverted by Theos were guided back to the vessels originally meant for them. For the first time, parents of hollow-born children woke to the cries of their infants and looked into their eyes to see them staring back. People fell to their knees where they stood, thanking Helia or Mogren or even Aethys for their forgiveness of whatever guilt they felt they bore. But for all the relief that had come to some parents, others only found new grief. For many thousands of Hollowborn had died during Wide One's legacy, many by their parents' own hands. For those children, there would be no homecoming. Yet the last Hollow birth was in the past now, and those parents willing to risk trying for a new child were frequently rewarded, often with twins. Many felt they saw Helia's hand in it, and the year would be remembered as the year of Helia's splendor. Gilded Vale remained under the harsh rule of Lord Radric, who reigned unopposed after the death of his cousin Kolsch. He continued to terrorize the people of Gilded Vale, looking for Aethasians in their midst. But to Radric, the sudden and unexpected end to Widewind's legacy came as a sign of the success and righteousness of his efforts, and in time, his own people came to believe it too. He relaxed his use of authority, no longer seeing his own people as potential threats, and Gilded Vale began to regain some of its old luster. Following the assassinations of Duke Avar Wolfgren and Lady Webb, Defiance Bay was thrown into political upheaval. In the ensuing weeks, the streets had become the domain of looters and blackguards. Few dared to step outside their own doors alone or unarmed. But once the dozens had regrouped in the wake of the riots, they quickly put an end to the criminal activity, patrolling the streets in droves and administering their brand of law on any perceived offenders. They also took the opportunity to depose the weakened Knights of the Crucible from their position of authority, branding them traitors to the people for their actions during the riots. Whatever knights weren't stoned to death in front of their keep were forced into exile. The external contingent of knights stationed at Fleetbreaker Castle would remain there, their high justice plotting the city's recapture. The dozens would soon find themselves overwhelmed by the problems of a leaderless metropolis, and in the days and months ahead, Defiance Bay remained on the brink of collapse. Though the machine atop Ter Noaneth had been disabled, it had not seen its last use. Heritage Hill was rebuilt, and no sooner had the first families moved in to resettle the district than members of the Leaden Key, acting under standing orders from their Grand Master, climbed the tower and reactivated the machine. The initiates slew a handful of the new settlers under cover of night and watched as history repeated itself, the victims reanimating and devouring the survivors.
Boo.
After this second incident, the district would remain abandoned. The Duke's assassination at the apparent hands of an Animancer had caused catastrophic rioting in the streets of Defiance Bay. But those who had escaped the melee in the palace hearings remembered the testimonies of the strange guest who had shown up that day and absolved Animancy, implicating the Leaden Key instead. The rumor spread quickly, and soon the popular belief was that the assassin had been a Leaden Key spy. When the legacy had lifted, people came to see it not as a sign that the riots had been according to the gods' wishes, as Theos had hoped, but as a confirmation that animancy had never been the source of the problem in the first place. Deerwoodans instead convinced themselves that the riots had somehow purged Defiance Bay of Leaden Key spies, and that the end of Whitewind's legacy was their well-deserved reward. The rage against animancers was quickly forgotten, and those who had survived were permitted to return to Brackenbury Sanitarium and rebuild it so they might resume their studies. The fortress of Cadnua emerged as a bastion of security in the midst of an untamed land, becoming the envy of every thane and earl in Deerwood. Legend grew over time of its impregnability, and stories of formidable invaders easily scattered by the keep's defenses became popular around the hearths of Deerwoodanians. Likewise, it also became a beacon to travelers, merchants, and visiting dignitaries alike. Reputed as the finest fortress in all Deerwood, people would journey from near and distant lands alike to experience its fabled hospitality and grandeur. Adair chose not to return home to Gilded Vale. Still most comfortable far from cities, he settled in Deerford, which, like many towns in the Deerwood, was beginning the slow process of rebuilding. Believing now that it was the obligation of Kith to be the leaders their gods had not, Adair was soon named mayor of the town, and under his guidance, Deerford soon began to prosper. He expelled the last of the Scanites from the area and drew new settlers with the offer of land, a trick he had learned from someone he otherwise preferred to forget. With each passing day, Deerford would come to more closely resemble the Gilded Vale of Adair's childhood, the one worthy of its name. When the dust settled in sun and shadow, Aloth looked upon the remains of Theos Ix Arcanon, his former master. He saw where the Grandmaster had gone wrong, and he knew what he would do better. The secret of the gods would be preserved, and with it, the sanity and well-being of all Kith. He donned the remains of Theos's ceremonial garb and prepared himself for the long and lonely task ahead. After all that he had learned in the Watcher's company, Kanorua could no longer see meaning in his pursuit of the Tanvi Oratoa. He decided to leave what remained of it within the depths of the Endless Paths and return home. Kana bid the Watcher farewell and sailed back to Rawatai, spending the tempestuous journey reflecting on the time he had lost to the pursuit of falsehoods. His family found Kana much changed, his fiery excitement replaced with a weary solemnity. Determined to change his wandering ways, Kana took up a quiet life as a lorekeeper at the college, teaching young students the traditions of their people. With Theos defeated and the souls released from sun and shadow, healthy children were born once again in the Deerwood. The grieving mother sought a place where she might do penance for the birthing bell. She returned to Deerford, where, to the astonishment of the villagers, she delivered the first healthy child in over a decade. She remained there, and with each new birth, she saw a measure of hope restored to the Deerwood, and a measure of grace for her own troubled past. Durrance used Magrin's strength only until Theos had been cast from the world, and then swore off her influence entirely. Regret came to weigh heavily on his mind, and a man who had never previously lacked for words or opinions came to embrace silence and contemplation. He continued to wander, penniless and destitute, searching now not for the reason for his goddess's silence, but for a mechanism for revenge. The charred robes he continued to wear as a reminder that he had been burned by his goddess, and not just by the flames of the Godhammer. Yu and Sagani never found Persoc together. The Adra figurine had gone dark by the time they emerged from Sun and Shadow, and it was another month before Sagani finally accepted that Persoc's trail had gone cold again. Her search took her beyond the Deerwood and as far as the Living Lands. She saw the great coastal cities of Rawatai and the ruins of Old Valia, absorbing the details of these strange and distant lands. 20 years passed before the Adra figurine finally glowed again. When it did, she followed its signal to a quiet hamlet on the outskirts of Adir. There, she met a young farmer and told her of her past as an elder of Masuk. Sagani returned to a village that had forgotten her face, but remembered her story. Masuk greeted her with cautious warmth, and Sagani found that their ways had become strange to her. She also learned that Kalu had perished of winter fever a few years before, and her middle child, Najuo, had died in a raid. But she found her daughter Yakona a hunter and mother of 3, and her son Malak a builder of mighty walls. In them, she came to find her place in the village, and the familiar contours of a world that had changed in her absence. For you, the death of Theos brought an end to your waking visions, and a silence to the whispers of the past. In their absence, you were able to sleep. The questions of a distant lifetime ceased to trouble your soul. All that remained was what to make of the answer. But at the moment, there was little to be done, and the matter would have to wait. A long journey loomed ahead.
Wow, that was a lot. A long journey waited ahead. I guess that's the next game. Pillars of Eternity, developed by Obsidian Entertainment. Well, I guess we should have finished some of those side stories before we went into that final battle. Poor Sagani. That was the worst one. Poor Sagani didn't ever get back to her village. Until 20 years later, and her husband and daughter had died, and only one survived. That was brutal. They didn't really tell us what happened to Aloth. On the one hand, they said something about the Grand Master of the Leaden Key had been blamed for something, and then later they said Aloth. I thought Aloth was the new Grand Master of the Leaden Key, so I thought they were talking about Aloth then, but... Well, that was a lot. I don't even know what to make of the ending of this game. I don't even know. I was away from the game for quite some time, weeks, and then I decided that I was never going to finish the DLCs because I'm just so busy with other stuff that I just decided to come back and, flip it to story time difficulty and just finish that final fight to finish up the video series, if nothing else. And this is what we got. I don't really know what to think of it. I'm not really sure if I won or not, to be perfectly honest. I don't really know if I did what I was supposed to or not. But we have reached the credits, and therefore, I feel like I can put the game away for a while. I don't need to worry about, trying to make time to record more videos, which is what I was really worried about, because I thought I was not gonna have time to finish the video series. But I'm glad that I have done that. So I don't know what I'm going to do with the video series. I think, well, I'm pretty sure this is going to be the last video. What you're watching now will probably be the last video. I did record some videos in the White March DLC, but then I got very distracted with life and was finding myself, not having time to play anymore. So I figured I would come back and just finish up the main story and call it a series. And that's what I have done. So I'm gonna stop here, and that'll be it. That was Pillars of Eternity. It was a fantastic game. I got it for free on the Epic Store. It was really a fantastic game. I wish I had more time to play it, to really finish everything that there is to see, because it's really, really interesting. Everything about it's really interesting. But probably the next time that I record will be Pillars of Eternity 2, which I'm really looking forward to because I know it has turn-based combat. And I also recently picked up XCOM 2 for $5 on the Steam store. So I'm pretty sure that has turn-based combat too, so I'll be looking forward to that one. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, because I expect life will be very busy for me, at least for a while, so recording game videos might fall way down on the priority list. But I really enjoyed Pillars of Eternity. It's a great game. I can't think of anything else to say, so I'm going to stop here. Thanks for watching. See you later.